Welcome back, Washington, D.C. Metro, to Real Estate Radio, and I'm joined today by Louis Cammarosano with HomeGain and Jim McCowan with Long & Foster. Real Estate Radio is designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's market by giving you good, free advice. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, the best number to reach out to us is 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. So before we jump into the tips for getting your house sold in 2011, I wanted to give you guys the what they don't want you to know tip of the week. One of the goals with Real Estate Radio is to protect you guys from who? The big banks, the politicians, the credit bureaus, the salesmen out there who are not looking out for your best interest. Real estate is your biggest investment. Your mortgage is a financial instrument, and your credit is the backbone of everything that you do financially. My goal is to be your trusted advisor on all. Remember, if you have any questions, please reach out to me at 877-245-2030. So on our real estate topic of this week, I'm going to go back to the refinance thing. Real estate refinance applications were up big this week, and it's perfect evidence that people are reactive instead of proactive. Rates already hit their lows months ago, yet people are just now looking to refinance. And I mean, I can't urge people enough that, you need to call now. Don't wait another 2 or 3 months when the rates are up at the 5.5% range and you're kicking yourself for not making a decision today. The rest of the media is always a day late and a dollar short on information. And, that's the whole premise of this show, is to try to bring, real-time information. And I'd say, if you're happy with what you can move forward with today, then make the decision. But it starts with just making a phone call to somebody that can, give you your options.
Right.
And the other tip is on the credit side, which I don't know where exactly I read this, but I heard that somewhere over 50% of the people that have been foreclosed on didn't even call their bank if they could do something.
Seriously?
Yeah. So this is just the old, burying your head in the sand and not wanting to find out what the options are because you're just, ashamed or whatever it might be, or if they've heard the stories that, hey, the bank's not going to work with you. Well, we obviously know that modifications aren't the route to go because nobody's going to get them done. And I explained last week on my show why that is.
Right.
When a bank takes a loan modification, they actually have to take that down as a loss from the time that modification starts.
Yeah.
So the banks want to carry these things on their balance sheets as far out as possible.
Sure.
So that's the real reason. Plus, they're securitized and tied up in these trusts, and they can't get permission to do so anyway.
Right.
So it's pretty interesting. But like I said, if you're in that situation, reach out to a professional that can help you. Know your options. Don't feel like you're alone. I think that the biggest thing in 2011 is education. And you need to rely on people. Obviously, most people start their search with the internet. Jim, you're on Truly all the time answering questions. And Louis, you're creating surveys and stuff to make people aware out there of what's going on. And I think that it's more and more important every year that passes that, people can rely on these places to get good information.
Yeah, and if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Yeah.
So, pick up the phone or send an email, something. There's always hope.
Absolutely. Number is 877-245-2030. Now, jumping into, I know this is a big discussion, for moving into 2011 and people that are either been on the fence or just trying to find the perfect time to sell their house for top dollar. What we want to do with you, Jim, and Louis is come up with some good ideas for getting your house sold in 2011. Some great tips that we can give the consumers on ways to go about doing this. You want to start, Jim?
Well, I think the number one way to get it sold is it's got to be priced right.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, your real estate agent is going to run comps. They're going to present you with sales, comp sales, in black and white. And sometimes it's very difficult for sellers, especially if they've been in property a long time. They have their own, like Louis was saying, their own inflated perception of what it's worth. And, sellers have to realize that, that realism is essential. And, take the information your agent show you, black and white. If you think a house is worth $550 and the last few sales were in the low fives, you've got to suck it up. And it's hard. I know it is. It's very emotional, but the number, I don't care whether it's 2011 or 2020, it's a house, a property has to be priced right in order to sell.
And it goes right back to Lewis's survey. Most people are thinking 10 to 20% above what you're actually the realistic list price is.
Well, and they've got that in their mind before they even talk to an agent.
Right.
So we kind of go in, we're up against the wall already, and you don't want to offend a seller.
Right.
You understand their attachment, but again, sometimes being realistic is is tough to get across.
And and being realistic is a necessity. I mean,
well, yeah.
You either want to sell your house or you don't.
You sell it or you list it.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm here to sell your house. I'm not here to list your house.
Yep.
One of the things that Jim probably runs across all the time is the home game members note. There are many agents out there that will tell you they will sell your house for X plus just to get the business.
Yes.
And you got to run the other way, because what inevitably happens if you have to reprice a home, it almost looks like damaged goods. So your best real estate agent is the one who's going to advise you on a realistic price. And, we advise our home sellers to listen to the home gain agents. They know the market. They're doing the comps. They know what they can get for you. And if it sounds not too good to be true that a real estate agent says they can get more, it's going to hurt you in the long run, because most likely they won't be able to get you more.
Amen.
You need to go with a quality real estate agent who knows the market and can get you the best deal, and one will help you get the home ready for sale as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You're listening to Real Estate Radio. We're talking about getting your house sold in 2011, the tips for that, with Louis Cammarosano and Jim McCowan. And I think that's some great insight there. And I think that it is really important too. We're in 2011 right now, where we see interest rates, and everything we talked about so far has interest rates rising.
Right.
So people that are looking to sell, I think that it's critical that they understand that the timing of that right now is going to be a perfect time if they're looking to unload, versus waiting towards the end of the year or waiting for the summer, because then they can get their kids' situation. It doesn't work.
It doesn't. I mean, interest rates don't just affect buyers.
Yeah.
It affects the sellers just as much.
Yeah, Louis, I know you were quoted in an article by the Wall Street Journal, and you gave some insights on there. One, which I thought was a good piece of advice, that you might consider interviewing a few real estate agents to get their take so you can get multiple views. Do you want to kind of dive into that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, that's also somewhat self-serving, because Home Gain runs a service that allows consumers to compare real estate agents anonymously. But I think there's a statistic out there. Everybody knows that 90, or the number goes up every year, % of people start the home search online. But there's another statistic, I think, put out by NAR, which is even more incredible, is I think 70% of consumers hire the first real estate agent they talk to. Now, that doesn't make any sense. I was speaking to someone the other day. People will spend more time analyzing a refrigerator purchase online than they will picking a real estate professional to help them with a very important financial transaction. So getting a right real estate agent, interviewing a few, Home Gain has a way that you can do that. If you're in an area Home Gain doesn't serve, you clearly would be best same with doctors, getting a second opinion. Talk to real estate agents, understand how they're going to market your home. If it's just they're going to post it everywhere, that's maybe not enough. Maybe they need to spend some money. Maybe they have to. You need to know what their track record is and how they're going to sell your home.
Agreed.
Yeah, I totally agree there. And I think that you bring up another interesting point is that, just because you're referred by somebody, like let's say it's, your friend up the street that had a good experience with someone, maybe that was just that sale you got lucky on that one. I mean,
right.
You don't always, you really need to do your research, your own research, independent of what everybody else says. I mean, and I think that with the internet out there and all the information that's available, you can find some really incredible professionals like yourself, Jim, that's on their own truly, giving answers to people that you may not get their business,
right?
But you're showing to the rest of the marketplace that you know what you're doing, and that sets you apart from the others. I mean, I can't tell you how many agents. We discussed this before the show, and I don't want to dive too far into it, but, I think with a lot of the short sales and the foreclosure listings that a lot of agents got, used to taking, where agents were telling me that the listings were half filled out.
Yeah.
Now, regardless of what type of transaction it is, doesn't the seller, whether it's the bank or the borrower, deserve the right to have their property, properly marketed?
Oh, agreed. But with a lot of times with these banks, obviously they're not local. There's nobody here looking maybe necessarily at what's in the MLS. And people kind of get lazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens. I run across it all the time. But real quickly back to your thing about interviewing agents, I think it's really important because this is a relationship.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a pretty intense relationship, whether it takes a month or 6 months. Track record's great. Personal, you got to be able to connect with the person.
And you may not always agree.
Exactly. And you have to agree to disagree and be able to communicate. And it's a relationship.
Right.
And, face-to-face interviews are very important.
Right.
And Jim, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Would you say it's important? I mean, obviously you have to have a rapport, but that the homeowner needs to follow or agree with your plan of action. So, for example, if you're going on an interview and someone tells you, you better get a new suit, you say, nah, I'll just go on the interview and see how it goes. I would not want to be the person who's getting the headhunter fee on that candidate. And I would say, when you have a homeowner comes into you and you tell him he needs to do a few things to get the home ready for sale, I'm sure you hear this. They say, well, let's just put it up and see how it goes. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's a great question, and I have run into that. And a couple of times I've even gotten to the point where if it works out and I get the listing, I will actually put in the listing agreement that, listing agent suggested this. Listing agent suggested whether it's the price or whether it's the things to be done.
Right.
Just so I have documentation that, if it comes back, hey, this is what I suggested. You chose not to. I mean, people generally, again, if you approach them on a kind of level playing field, you're going to run into some opposition initially. But again, as this relationship progresses, and it may take a month before you even get a signed listing agreement, but as long as you're in communication, you stay in touch and you work with them, I think, I've had pretty good success with getting people, not all of them by any means, to agree to my suggestions, and it's worked out.
I think that's good. Louis, we're coming up on a break, but when we come back, we're going to dive more into this, give our listeners a little bit more on getting your house sold in 2011. You're listening to Real Estate Radio.